Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the Marine Corps Heritage Foundation, welcome to our annual awards dinner. I'm Lieutenant General Rusty Blackman, the president of the Marine Corps Heritage Foundation. The lineage of our foundation dates back to the formation of the Marine Corps Historical Foundation in 1979. In 1981, the Historical Foundation established and made the first presentation of the Colonel Heinel Award, recognizing feature writing about a subject related to the Marine Corps. We continue in that tradition with 18 awards being bestowed tonight. The act of recognizing the finest examples of writing, art, photography, and scholarship to focus on the Marine Corps story has only grown in importance over the last 36 years. In 2011, Pew Research Center found the following. More than 3/4 of Americans over 50 years old had an immediate family member who served in the military. That percentage dropped to just over 1/2 for Americans 30 to 49 years old. It dropped further still to only 1/3 of Americans 18 to 29. During our nation's longest period of sustained conflict in Iraq and Afghanistan, just 0.5% of American adults served on active duty at any given time. Gratitude for our military remains high, but do they truly understand what they are grateful for? The ever-widening gap between service members and civilians will impact how we support those who serve and how we honor their commitment and sacrifices. The awardees we honor tonight, selected from over 100 submissions by panels of distinguished judges, help bridge that divide in significant ways. The works we celebrate tonight make the Marine Corps experience more accessible, more accurate, and more real for those who never wore the uniform, any uniform. The mission of the Marine Corps Heritage Foundation is to preserve and promulgate the history, traditions, and culture of our Corps. Our winners tonight help further that mission. Among you are men and women wearing a medallion on a red ribbon hanging around their neck. They are this year's award recipients. Please take any opportunity you have throughout the night to congratulate them for their success in helping us preserve and promulgate our history, traditions, and culture. Each of these award recipients has made an extraordinary contribution to our Corps, and they honor the Marine for whom the award is named. Our award winners have done their part. Our National Museum does its part as well to preserve and promulgate our Corps' history, traditions, and culture. Since opening, we have welcomed over 5 million visitors. And of that number, perhaps, I won't say more importantly, but as important, of those visitors, 300,000 were school children on organized school trips. Each one of those students has felt an extraordinary sense of pride and has been educated in our Corps' and our nation's history, as well as those virtues of selfless service, sacrifice, honor, courage, and commitment that define Marines and our Corps. We have a great program this evening, one befitting the history, traditions, and culture of the United States Marine Corps. Now, I ask you to please stand for presentation of colors by Marines from Marine Barracks, Washington, D.C., and remain standing for our national anthem, and the Marines hymn played by a brass quintet from the President's own. March on the colors. Hoorah. Please be seated. My sincere thanks to the Color Guard and the Brass Quintet. You've made a very special evening even more so. Thank you. I will now individually recognize only our most senior guests this evening. Please understand that all of you are truly distinguished guests, and we are honored that you are here. We are especially honored to have the Secretary of Homeland Defense, John Kelly, and his wife, Karen. They are truly long and dear friends. Thank you. The Commandant of the Marine Corps, General Robert B. Neller, and his wife, Darcy. I have been blessed by the Neller's friendship for many years. Thank you. General Al Gray, the 29th Commandant of the United States Marine Corps. General Walt Boomer and his wife Sandy. Sergeant Major of the Marine Corps Ronald Green. And Supervisor Maureen Cadigan from Prince William County. We are enjoying dinner tonight in her district. So thank you, Maureen, for being here. We are also honored to have 16 active duty general officers and members of the Senior Executive Service and 12 general officers no longer on active duty, but who continue to serve Corps and country every day. Thank you for being with us this evening. And last, certainly but not least, the Director of the National Museum of the Marine Corps, Ms. Linnie Zell. On a somewhat sadder note, a Marine Corps icon and longtime friend of the Marine Corps Heritage Foundation, Major Norm Hatch, passed away on April 22nd at the age of 96. Norm joined the Marine Corps in 1939 and served a total of 41 years, both active and reserve. He served at the Marine Corps Institute, Leatherneck Magazine, and as Director of Photography for the Marine Corps. But what we know him best for was as a staff sergeant in the 2nd Marine Division, follow me. He assembled a team of Marines and created the division's motion picture and still photographer section. The footage his team shot on Tarawa became the documentary that won an Oscar in 1944. Another of his cameramen, Sergeant Bill Gnaust, shot the famous footage of the flag raising atop Mount Suribachi. The Foundation's award for a feature documentary is given in recognition of Norm's service. We also learned last week that on April 17th, Colonel Julia Hamlet passed away. Colonel Hamlet, for whom one of our awards is named, became the 3rd director of the Women Marines. She had enlisted in the Women's Reserve of the U.S. Marine Corps in April of 1943. Commissioned as a first lieutenant on May 4th, 1943, she rose quickly through the ranks, becoming director of the Women's Reserve in 1946. The Women's Armed Forces Integration Act of 1948 transformed the Women's Reserve into the Women Marines, into which Colonel Hamlet was commissioned in November of 1948. In assuming the directorship of the Women Marines, Colonel Hamlet was the youngest woman to head a branch of the U.S. military. We will certainly miss both Major Norm Hatch and Colonel Julia Hamlet. I would like to recognize each of our directors on the Foundation's board. Please stand. Time is perhaps our most treasured resource. These individuals invest their precious time in the accomplishment of our Foundation's mission. For that, we are all grateful. Thank you. Last year at this time, we introduced our incoming chairman of the board of directors, General John Kelly. We were very proud to name one of the nation's truly finest leaders to our board. Apparently, the President of the United States shared our collective enthusiasm for General Kelly. And as you know, General Kelly is now serving as the Secretary of Homeland Security. We thank him, all of us, for your continued service to our nation and wish you the best of luck in your new assignment. However, tonight we welcome him and his wife Karen simply as a Marine family and strong supporters of the Foundation's mission. I'd like to single out Susan Hodges, our Vice President of Finance and Administration, and each of the judges for their work with the awards program this past year. Once again, they have done an extraordinary job and made some extraordinarily difficult decisions. Thank you all for your valuable, invaluable contribution to our award program. We also I was talking to Carol Dowd today. Carol Dowd, as one of the judges of the NonFiction books, read 9 books. I don't think I've read 9 books in the last couple of years, but I plan on it here sooner rather than later. So thank you all, the judges. We also recognize the founders and Commandant Circle members here tonight for their loyalty and generous support. You will find each of their names in the program, as well as behind you, behind the Tarawa tableau on the wall here in Leatherneck Gallery. They have made this all possible, as well as hundreds of thousands of Marines and Americans who have supported our mission with unprecedented loyalty and commitment. Last year in 2016, we received over 111,000 gifts, large and small, that made this museum possible. And I thank each and every one of you. Many of you here, but those 100,000 that aren't across the nation. A handful of men and women come to work every day at the Marine Corps Heritage Foundation office, the Baker's Dozen. They are mission-focused, imaginative, and a hard-working team. I am proud of each and every one of you, and I am proud of your collective accomplishments every day on behalf of accomplishing our mission. Now I'd like to draw your attention to the program where we have recognized our annual awards dinner sponsors. First, our dinner sponsors, General Dynamics and Lockheed Martin. Thank you. You make this possible. Our table sponsors, Balfour Beatty Construction, Fentress Architects, Potomac Institute for Policy Studies, Great West Casualty Company, Simtex, Vion, Dave and Nancy Parker, John and Carol Dowd, John and Elaine French, Richard and Cheryl Moxley, the Hartnack family, and Colonel Rob Hankey. Thank you. And we thank additional sponsors, Susan Davis International, thank you, Judy, Major Eddie Aronson, and Bill Kalados. Thank you. We thank you all for your loyalty and support. It makes a real difference. I would now like to ask Rear Admiral Brent Scott, Chaplain of the Marine Corps, to the lectern to deliver the invocation.
I would invite you to join me in prayer. Eternal God, our Creator, Redeemer, our guide and stay, as we gather tonight in the shadows of the Marine Corps' rich history, hear our gratitude for your providence evident within this sacred place and throughout the Corps' illustrious heritage. Allow this evening of celebration work to honor those who have excelled while using their talents to tell and draw and capture the stories of faith and fortitude, hardships and uncertainty, and inner strength and mettle which have defined the Marine Corps. May this evening remind us that every story written, every image recorded reveals countless more men and women who this night are making tomorrow's history through their untold sacrifice and devotion. We lift up our prayers to you for their safekeeping. We're particularly humbled by the example of three great Americans tonight: President George H.W. Bush, Mrs. Barbara Bush, and General Walter Boomer, who embody the sacrifice of service to a nation for a lifetime, and all the while upholding the rich character, the qualities and conviction of our Corps. We ask then that you would grant our celebration your uplifting presence. May the meal nourish our service to you and to this country, and may our lives reflect our gratitude for your grace. In the name of him who is Semper Fidelis, this day and every day. Amen.
Thank you, Chaplain. Thank you, Chaplain Scott. There were many reasons this museum needed to be built. The principal reason was to honor Marines. Marines, like many of you here tonight, who epitomize the virtues of honor, courage, commitment, selfless service, and sacrifice that Marines hold so dear. Our museum depicts the history of our nation as seen through the eyes of Marines all but the past 40 years. Many of you are familiar with our museum, some of you are not. If you walked through the museum galleries earlier, you noticed our history stopped at the year 1975 with the end of the Vietnam War. That will not be the case in a few short years. After a decade and a half of extraordinary commitment by so many that are in this room this evening, the final objective, the completion of the museum, is well inside the horizon. On the 31st of March, we achieved substantial completion of construction, which triggered a wonderful week of inspections, the week of the 3rd of April, fire, life, safety, and elevator inspections. And we are in the process now that we can use these spaces for the purposes that they were intended, of turning those spaces over to the museum staff for fabrication and installation of the exhibitry. The exhibit spaces and features behind us here have all been constructed since the 2015 groundbreaking. They are ready to be filled by the museum staff with the stories of Marines who have served in the last 40 years. Plans include 2 new galleries dedicated to Marines from the end of the Vietnam War, the first gallery through that fateful day, September 11th. And then the final gallery, the War on Terror, from that day through the present day. The new galleries will include a sports gallery, a combat art gallery, a Hall of Valor to honor all Marines who have earned a decoration for valor and the Purple Heart, and an education suite that includes 2 classrooms, a student activity room, read lunchroom, and a children's gallery. Tonight, we used our new giant screen Medal of Honor Theater, sponsored by Lockheed Martin, for the pre-awards ceremony. It will be formally opened this summer and feature a spectacular signature film sponsored by the Boeing Company. That film focuses on today's Marines and what they are doing to serve our nation around the globe. The remaining exhibits and galleries will open in phases over the next few years, beginning with the Combat Art Gallery this summer and the Children's Gallery and Education Suite in late fall. Though construction from the perspective of the Marine Corps Heritage Foundation is complete, and Lindy Zell and her team have considerable effort ahead of them, but I can tell you one thing, she and her team are up to the task. We remain mission-focused to seek financial support for expanding programs at the National Museum of the Marine Corps and beyond its wall. Our mission is to preserve and promulgate the history, traditions, and culture of the Marine Corps. It is not to build a museum. As long as there is a Marine Corps, there will be a need for this foundation to honor the legacy of Marines. Our mission is an enduring one. The directors and staff of the Marine Corps Heritage Foundation are absolutely committed to accomplishing that mission. And I know you are as well. There is still much more to accomplish. Everything has to be somewhere. Everybody has to be somewhere, but everything has to be somewhere. And the National Museum of the Marine Corps is at exit 150 on I-95. The time has come to expand the Foundations and Museums program beyond its walls to Americans across the country. And on that important note, dinner is served. We will interface the program with dinner. Steve, Sienna, do not despair. I will be back shortly. Enjoy your meal. Ladies and gentlemen, as promised, I have returned. Vinny, I saw you hanging out with all those logisticians before. One grenade will get you off, you know? Earlier this evening, General Neller and I presented awards to 16 of our 18 award recipients. 2, unfortunately, could not be here tonight. We would now like to recognize all of the award recipients. Please direct your attention to the screens as I read through the list of awards. The recipient of the 2017 Colonel Joseph Alexander Award, recognizing a distinguished work of biographical or autobiographical literature about a Marine, is Mr. James Carl Nelson for I Will Hold, the story of Marine Corps legend Clifton B. Cates, from Belleau Wood to the victory in the Great War. The Bill Broyles Award recipient is Ms. Elizabeth Frankel for her play Shelter, that takes place in 1957 and follows Henry, a World War II Marine veteran who is comforted only by spending time in his fallout shelter behind his suburban house. The Sergeant Major Dan Daly Award recipient is Miss Mindy Shower for her photography collection, Our Neighbors, Our Marines. Here is her collection of winning photos. The recipient of this year's Robert A. Gannon Award is Mr. John Musgrave for the collection of poetry, Notes to the Man Who Shot Me, Vietnam War Poems. The General Roy S. Geiger Award for Best Aviation Article goes to the OV-10 Bronco Association for their article, The OV-10 Bronco, Designed for Counterinsurgency and the Vietnam War. The recipient of the General Wallace M. Green Jr. Award for nonfiction writing is Mr. J. Cale Weston for Mirror Test, that centers on wounded who have received a grievous injury to the face. There is a moment during their recovery when they must look upon their reconstructed appearance for the first time. This is known as the mirror test. From an intricate tapestry of voices and stories, Iraqi, Afghan, and American, Weston delivers a larger mirror test for our nation and its global role. The Colonel Julia E. Hamlet Award, selected by the Women Marines Association, is for the preservation of the history of women Marines. This year's award goes to Colonel Marion S. Waldrop for her dissertation, Understanding Women Leaders in a Male-Dominated Profession, a study of U.S. Marine Corps women generals. The recipient of the Major Norman Hatch Award for a feature documentary is Lucky 8 TV, to include Ms. Kim Woodward, Mr. Greg Henry, Mr. Isaac Holub, Mr. Michael Hartline, Mr. Simon Boyce, and Mr. Joel Patterson, and Mr. Tim Evans from the Smithsonian Channel. For the unknown flag raiser of Vietnam, please direct your attention to a clip from the documentary. It will start right when they realize that Navy Corpsman John Bradley is not one of the flag raisers in Joe Rosenthal's iconic photograph.
This mystery, it's a huge undertaking. I started watching the film shot by Bill Janoust as the flag was going up. I watched that movie, I don't even know how many times. I watched it frame by frame, night after night, studying every little detail that I could. And then finally, late one night, I saw it. If you watch Bill Janoust's footage and you freeze it at this one particular spot, you can see exactly what sets this Marine apart from everyone else that day. You can clearly see something dangling from this Marine's helmet. What was it? Was it a piece of cloth? Was it a vine? Was it a wire? Something was hanging off this guy's helmet, and I had to figure out what it was.
One of the other photographs taken on the mountain that day gives Crelly the clue he needs. It's known as the gung-ho picture. and like a team photo, it identifies the men of the patrol.
There was one Marine that stood out because he appeared to have a large, dark scar across the front of his face. Turns out it was a shadow because there was a strap hanging from his helmet and causing a shadow to cast across his face.
An analyst, Michael Plaxton, spots something else that singles this man out. A forensic clue that will confirm his identity beyond a reasonable doubt.
While I was examining the footage, I noticed that the mystery man had some trouble with his weapon. He kept having to shrug his shoulder to keep it up there. It looks in a rather uncomfortable position, and it's hanging much lower than the other men's rifles here and here. What is going on is that this person's rifle isn't slung correctly. This part of the strap, the sling for the rifle, should actually be much farther back on the stock, and that allows it to hang more comfortably and snugly. His is hanging from a different spot on the barrel, something called a stacking swivel.
Janous's footage provides the final piece of the puzzle that will reveal the identity of the mystery Marine. By linking the man whose rifle was slung incorrectly to the gung-ho photograph, the one picture that identifies the Easy Company Marines. The film shows the men lined up for Rosenthal's photo. This is the man with the shadow cast by his helmet strap. 3 seconds later, he raises his rifle and reveals that his sling is attached in the wrong place. We know the name of that man in the gung-ho photograph. The man with a hanging helmet strap and misslung rifle. The man who helped raise the flag over Iwo Jima and who was captured in the iconic image. He is an Easy Company mortarman, private first class, and his name is Harold Henry Schultz.
The Colonel Robert D. Heinel Jr. Award for feature writing goes to Ms. Hope Hodge Seck for her article, 13 Years After Iraq, The Marines of Generation Kill Regret Nothing. The Sergeant Major Bradley Castle Award for a single photograph goes to Mr. Isaac Ibarra for field life taken at the Pahakaloa training area on the Big Island in Hawaii. The 2017 recipient of the Colonel John Magruder Award is Marine Corps Reserve Pentagon, to include Gunnery Sergeant Elizabeth Inglesi, Gunnery Sergeant Brian Knowles, and Ms. Corey Parker for their permanent display centennial exhibit depicting 100 years of the Marine Corps Reserve. The Brigadier General Edwin Simmons Henry I. Shaw Award for Superior Historical Scholarship by a public historian this year is awarded to Dr. Charles Niemeyer for War in the Chesapeake, the British campaigns to control the bay, 1813 to 1814. The General Oliver P. Smith Award recipient for local news reporting is Corporal Shaltiel Dominguez for Lance Corporal Segovia Lopez Memorial Tribute. The Colonel John W. Thomason Jr. Award for Excellence in Fine or Applied Arts in depicting the historic or contemporary Marine Corps goes to Mr. Victor Uhas for his illustrations, Combat Art of Victor Uhas, documenting the experience of Marines. Here is some of his artwork. The recipient of the James Webb Award for Fiction is Mr. Maximilian Ugarte for The White Donkey, Terminal Lands, a graphic novel tribute to the experience of war and PTSD. The Sergeant William Gnaust Award goes to Mr. Ronald Zakzak for The Breaker Patrol. His documentary recounts a mission to rescue wounded Marines and their corpsmen from a 3rd Recon Battalion team attached to 26th Marines from a hill northwest of Quezon in May of 1967. After multiple attempts, the 3 severely wounded Marines were evacuated by an unarmed Huey Slick. Ron was the crew chief. But the bodies of the 3 remaining KIA Marines and their corpsmen were left behind because of weight limitations. Through Ron's efforts and with the support of Lieutenant General Ron Christmas and the Joint POW MIA Accounting Command, recovery operations were conducted, and in 2005, the remains were interned at Arlington with honors in the presence of their families, fellow recon Marines, and air crew. His documentary contains audio tapes made within days of the mission from 3 of the flight crew who participated in the extract mission, as well as photos and detailed maps. In the following clip, you will see the second part of his documentary detailing the recovery operations. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the legacy of our Corps. After 38 years, Marines brought those Marines and Corpsmen back home. And so, these are our 2017 award winners. In addition to the medallions they are wearing this evening, each award recipient received a commemorative brick that will be placed in Semper Fidelis Memorial Park, and in some cases, a cash award. Would all of our awardees please stand and be recognized? And thank you to each of our award recipients for your superb contribution to the preservation and promulgation of the history, traditions, and culture of our Corps. You can visit the Foundation's website at marineheritage.org for further information, more detail about each winning submission with links to the articles, photos, and videos. Now, please continue to enjoy your dinner. And as I promised before and was true to my word, I will be back. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm pleased to introduce Mr. Dave Parker, our former Vice Chairman of the Marine Corps Heritage Foundation Board of Directors, to introduce tonight's Heritage Award recipient.
These are interesting notes he leaves here. It is my honor to present the Foundation's 2017 Heritage Award. The award is presented to an individual or team that has provided unique and significant service to the Marine Corps Heritage Foundation in the fulfillment of its mission. For nearly a decade, the Marine Corps Heritage Foundation was privileged to have General Boomer as its chair of its board of directors. His foundation leadership followed an impressive career in the United States Marine Corps, which in and of itself contributed to the heritage honored and preserved by the Foundation. General Boomer joined the Marine Corps in 1960 after graduating from Duke University. His service included 2 tours in Vietnam, where he was a combat commander in 1966 and 1967, and an advisor to a South Vietnamese Marine Infantry Battalion in 1971 and 1972. He was awarded the Silver Star Medal twice for his actions in combat. In 1986, he was promoted to Brigadier General and named Director of Public Affairs at Marine Headquarters in Washington, D.C. In 1988, he was given command of the 4th Marine Division in New Orleans. During this assignment, he was promoted to Major General in 1988 and to Lieutenant General in 1990. Shortly after his promotion to Lieutenant General, he was deployed to Saudi Arabia as the Commanding General, U.S. Marines Central Command and 1st Marine Expeditionary Force. He led all Marines during Operations Desert Shield and Desert Storm, the largest single operation in Marine Corps history. In 1991, at the completion of his service in the Middle East, General Boomer was the Commanding General, 1st Marine Expeditionary Force, Commanding General, Marine Corps Base at Camp Pendleton, California. Later that year, he was named Commanding General, Marine Combat Development Command at Quantico, Virginia. He was promoted to general and named Assistant Commandant of the Marine Corps in 1992 and held that position until his retirement in 1994. After retiring from the Marine Corps, General Boomer was Executive Vice President of McDermott International and President of Babcock and Wilcox Power Generation Group. In 1997, he joined Rogers Corporation as President and CEO. General Boomer was appointed Chairman of the Board in 2002 and retired from the company in 2004. He remained a Director of Rogers Corporation until 2010. General Boomer was a Director of Baxter International for 15 years, serving as Lead Director for 3 years. Boomer was also a Director of Cytec, a woman's healthcare company until it was merged with another company. He is a Director of Taylor Energy Company and Paragon Medical Company. A native of Rich Square, North Carolina, General Boomer holds a BA from Duke University in Durham, North Carolina, and an MS in Technology of Management from American University in Washington, D.C. He graduated with distinction from the Naval War College. Upon his acceptance to chair our board of directors, he immediately exercised the same leadership skills which had set him apart in the Corps and in corporate America to ensure that the foundation would achieve its ultimate goals with the team it required. The final build-out phase, just now being completed, evidences both his guidance and commitment. His leadership set up the foundation for success. His footsteps have left an indelible mark on the foundation and the museum, which both will serve the Corps and our nation for centuries to come. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my honor and pleasure to introduce our 2017 Heritage Award recipient, both a true Marine and a loyal friend, General Walt Boomer.
We have to gong you and give you that plaque.
Oh, you do? When do I get the phone?
Thank you.
That's fantastic.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Secretary Kelly, God, I love the way that sounds. General Neller, General Gray, distinguished general officers, distinguished guests, Sergeant Major Green, my family and friends. It is with a great deal of humility and honor that I'm even here when the presentation of the Leadership Award to President and Mrs. Bush is being given. Not only are they American icons in the truest sense of the word, but they are so special to me and to my wife, Sandy. Thanksgiving, 1990. They came to Saudi Arabia to be with the American troops. The Marines were already spread across the desert. So they flew in from nowhere to nowhere. I allowed a few Marines from each unit to come and be with their President and First Lady. The reaction to Mrs. Bush by the young Marines was touching to behold. It was as if their mother had showed up for their Thanksgiving dinner. She was inundated with polite requests. Mrs. Bush, would you sign my hat? Mrs. Bush, would you sign my jacket? One of her staff said to me, they ought to just leave her alone. They're going to wear her out. And I looked at the staffer and said, you just leave her alone. Can't you see she's having the time of her life? The president spoke to the Marines, and the party prepared to leave. The presidential helicopter was about 50 yards away, and I rode with Mrs. Bush to the LZ. Totally unscripted, Marines lined that road. They just appeared. And they said, thank you, Mrs. Bush. Thank you. Thank you for coming. Tears streamed down her face. I said, Mrs. Bush, if you don't stop crying, you're going to make the commanding general cry, and that's not a very good idea. She laughed, and you saw the picture of her saying goodbye as she got aboard their helicopter. One final little story. In 2011, a group gathered in the president's apartment at Texas A&M to commemorate the 20th anniversary of the Gulf War. Now, this was a group of men who had gone their separate ways after serving President Bush, and some had even had disagreements. But they came together that day because their president had invited them. And in his presence, they were the old team again. His inspirational leadership has that effect on people. Now, about this Heritage Award, and you can take that slide off. About this Heritage Award, I'm truly honored. I truly am. It is a labor of love for those who toil and who have toiled to make this museum a reality. I mean, God, just look at it. Look at it. It is our place, more than just a museum. It is our spiritual home. A place that makes us proud of our Corps and our fellow Marines. A place that enables us to reflect on friends and colleagues, past and present, whose deeds fill us with awe and respect, and who continue to inspire us. It allows us, too, to see where we fit in the fabric, history of this marvelous Corps of men and women. But this museum is not the result of one person's work. It stands because tens of thousands of mostly Marines have given of their treasure in whatever amount they could afford, month after month, year after year. It is the work of two marvelous CEOs and their staffs, and the work of the director of the museum and her band of dedicated magicians, and our great docents. And the dedication and advice and treasure of a board of directors that is unparalleled in this kind of endeavor. Now the museum stands before you, ladies and gentlemen, almost complete. Some might say it's just a monument to war. No, my friends. It is a monument to freedom and the blood and sweat and tears required to maintain that freedom. If there is a place that teaches us that freedom is not free, it is this place. So I accept this award on behalf of all those who have made it happen. God bless our Corps of Marines and the nation they serve. Thank you.
Thank you, General Boomer. It is now my distinct honor to announce our Lieutenant General John A. Lejeune Recognition for Exemplary Leadership. The Foundation established this honor to recognize individuals who have demonstrated leadership in their chosen profession or appointed or elected position that is clearly exemplary and worthy of emulation. Recognition is made in the form of a statuette of General Lejeune provided by founder and board member Patrick Brent. The recipient must epitomize the core values of honor, courage, and commitment and practice the leadership traits and principles ascribed to by General Lejeune and the United States Marine Corps. Our 2017 Lejeune Recognition goes to President George Herbert Walker Bush and former First Lady Mrs. Barbara Bush. President Bush's career in leadership began on his 18th birthday when he enlisted in the United States Navy. He became the youngest Navy pilot when he received his wings. President Bush flew 58 combat missions during World War II and was awarded the Distinguished Flying Cross for bravery in action. His life as a public servant included 2 terms as a member of Congress, ambassador to the United Nations, chairman of the Republican National Committee, chief of the U.S. Liaison Office in the People's Republic of China, and director of the CIA. He served as vice president under President Ronald Reagan before being elected our 41st president in 1988. While in office, President Bush reaffirmed U.S. leadership and its ability to serve as a force for good as the world emerged from the Cold War. Faced with a violent regime in the Middle East, President Bush became a wartime president during Operations Desert Shield and Desert Storm. President Bush earned widespread respect among men and women in uniform, as was just shared by General Boomer. But he wasn't alone. First Lady Barbara Bush was also recognized for her care and concern for those who defend our nation. Mrs. Bush has been a driving force for good causes throughout her public life. One of her largest priorities has been to promote literacy in America, and that effort continues today. General Boomer shared a personal story about the Bushes, and I will too. On Memorial Day of 1989, I was the CO of BLT-38, deployed to the Mediterranean with the 22nd MEU. We were tasked to anchor off the small town of Nettuno, Italy. And we were there because there is the national cemetery for the Italian campaign in Anzio. President Bush and the Prime Minister of Italy were to give a speech. And so there was a detachment of Marines from BLT-38, and I had the privilege of standing in front of those Marines. There was a detachment of sailors from the ARG, soldiers from Italy serving there, as well as airmen, and a formation of Carabinieri. After the speeches, there was a grand photo op of the Bushes sitting on a stone bench overlooking that sea of crosses and stars of David. While sitting up on that bench, President Bush said, "What are those ships out there?" And in the good old days, we had 5 of them in the ARG. And someone said, "Well, that's where the Marines and sailors came from." And he said, "I want to go out and visit them." So they drove down the hill. Marine 1 was sitting there. They took off and landed on a red deck. Now, the ARG commander, the Commodore, the MEU commander, the CO of the ship were all ashore for this event. So the XO of the ship is standing there in wash khakis. There are Marines wandering around the deck of the USS Guadalcanal, and Marine 1 hovers over the deck. So the Marines kind of scatter, and the President of the United States and the First Lady land on the deck of the USS Guadalcanal. So I observed a rather comical situation. The Commodore and the MEU commander and the CO of the ship were knocking each other over trying to get on a UE to get out to the Guadalcanal. So when I finally made my way back home to the Guadalcanal, President Bush had said, "I want to see where the Marines and sailors live. I want to get down in those snake pits." And he did. He toured every one of the berthing compartments for the Marines and sailors. And then for the rest of the afternoon, stood on the fantail of that ship and got his picture taken and Mrs. Bush's picture taken with every Marine and sailor on that ship. He did not leave the Guadalcanal. He did not leave the Guadalcanal until there was not a single Marine or sailor on that ship who had not gotten their picture taken with their president and their first lady. And as General Boomer said, I mean, there are thousands. And as General Boomer said, Mrs. Bush treated each of those young men like her son or grandson. It was a remarkable, magical afternoon for me. I just stood there and watched it. And it just, to me, epitomizes what real leadership at the highest levels is, and the difference that those 2 extraordinary people made in the lives of those young men. They will never forget it. Together, President and Mrs. Bush are truly a special couple that provided a unique brand of leadership to the men and women of all of our armed forces. They are an example of caring and compassionate leadership from the highest level. I am honored to present them both with the 2017 Lieutenant General John A. Lejeune Recognition for Exemplary Leadership. And as you can see from that photo, I was privileged to meet with the President last October in Houston and make that presentation. And as most of you know, we are blessed by the fact that President Bush has been discharged from the hospital and is home now. We are grateful to have President and Mrs. Bush's grandson, Mr. Walker Bush, and that's the last time I'm going to call him Mr., with us to accept the award on their behalf. Corporal Bush attended college for 1 year before enlisting in the United States Marine Corps. He completed boot camp at Parris Island in 2011 and was assigned to 1-8 as a machine gunner. Corporal Bush deployed to Afghanistan in 2012. In 2014, he completed another overseas deployment to Okinawa. He is currently back in college at Texas Christian University in Fort Worth and expecting to graduate next year. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Corporal Walker Bush.
So, General Boomer, thanks for setting the stage for me. That was a tough act to follow. Like they said, like Lieutenant General Blackman said, my grandfather's now out of the hospital. Unfortunately, he's home already taking orders from my grandmother. But on behalf of my grandparents and family, I would like to extend my greatest appreciation to everyone here who's shown love and support, and appreciation to the Marine Corps Heritage Foundation, a group that has gone above and beyond to preserve and illustrate the storied history of our beloved Corps. And congratulations to all the recipients of tonight's awards. Let's give them a round of applause. So when I was first asked to do this, I was terrified. What do you say about your hero? Someone you've grown up looking at your entire life and wanting to be like. How can words possibly describe this man? How can I possibly do it justice? And then I realized it doesn't matter. His actions have spoken louder than any words that I could ever say about him. His dedication to his country, family, and friends sum up everything in his being. And this award is exactly that. The John A. Lejeune Recognition Award for demonstrated leadership in their chosen profession or appointed or elected position that is clearly exemplary and worthy of emulation. That word, emulation. I cannot think of a better duo to model one's life after and use the word emulation. Growing up in my family, there's no shortage of people to look up to, but it all stems from my grandparents. Individuals who practice what they preach. Be humble, help others, find passion in life, and regret nothing. My grandfather, the daredevil, hard worker and compassionate man, willing to do whatever is necessary to help his fellow man. And the stories you heard show just that. My grandmother, terrifying as a child. She was like a senior drill instructor, avoiding at all costs, fiery, resilient, and tough loving, making you a tougher person. Together, they create an unstoppable force of character that is unwavering in their dedication to make this world better, traits worth emulating. So, if you'll raise a glass for a toast to them, selflessness, utter selflessness, and dedication to the men and women in uniform, past and present. Thank you.
Corporal Bush, thank you for joining us tonight. You had no reason to, and you didn't after a while, be concerned about this. You are home. You are with your family. And we are thrilled that you, a Marine, could be here to accept that award on behalf of your grandfather and your grandmother. Thank you. And thank you also for continuing your family's proud service to our nation. Thank you. You made a difference. You ready? Ladies and gentlemen, it is my distinct honor to introduce our military guest of honor, the 37th Commandant of the United States Marine Corps, General Robert B. Neller. What's the B stand for?
Badass. You know, when General Blackman used to yell at me, he never spoke that slowly. It was much faster. So a couple things. General Boomer talked about this place. I think last year we talked about this as kind of our cathedral. I mean, kind of like the Holy Church of the Semper Fidelis. And every time I come in here, you know, just something else. So the Heritage Foundation and all the board of directors and all the people that donate, and to Lynn Ezel and her folks, thanks so much. And for all the award recipients, congratulations. It's kind of cool because tonight, you know, Dr. Niemeyer, Cale Weston that General Kelly and I serve with overseas, Maximilian Uriarte with Terminal Lance. See, you don't get it, but that was for you, Max. All right, all the Marines out there. It's really funny. I mean, you gotta. If General Schultz used to say the two most important traits of a Marine are a sense of humor and discipline. If you can't laugh about some of the stuff that the Commandant tells you to do, I mean, I don't know what else you're gonna do. And I hear it all the time, and I go, somebody ought to tell the Commandant about that. But it's a great opportunity to be here with you tonight. A couple things. First, if you're really hungry and you want to eat your dinner and you want to be left alone, but you think you're important, sit next to John Kelly and nobody will bother you. Because you can just sit there and cut and chew and nobody really cares who you are. Just saying, brother. And then General Gray, you know, this has been really bugging me for about 27 years now. So, you know, we were in command and staff, and Major Kelly and Major Neller and all these other guys, the only guy you let go to Saudi was Kelly. He made the rest of us stay there the whole year and go to school. And I'm still upset about that. But I know you had proper intentions, but it just really, really bothered me that Kelly got to go. I finally had to get it off my chest, sir. I'm sorry. I feel a lot better now. So I was asked to talk about what our Marines are doing. A lot of people come up to me and they say, well, you're Marines, and they're not my Marines. They're our Marines. They belong to the American people. And they're doing great. And there's a lot of stuff going on. It's a different Marine Corps than it was when John Kelly and I were romping around, when I had Sergeant Bacon, Sergeant Douglas, and Corporal Thomas with a GCT of 68 as my squad leaders. They were good men. But I don't know if they'd make it today. They were tough. They were hard, like all the Marines that you see here in Leatherneck, in the Leatherneck entryway here. But the same ethos that invigorated those that we talked about earlier, our Vietnam vets that are here tonight, those are Marines that landed on all those islands in World War II, or went into Bellawood or Chateau Thierry during World War I. That's still the same. The desire to win, the desire to compete, the desire to be different than the rest of the country from which they come. And this museum is a space that's dedicated to that difference. And I think it's great that we have this place. I know that this place is the envy of all the other services. And I remember when I was here when this place opened, and I think it was a dream for, well, I mean, I just come right out. It was General Ron Christmas had this idea. Where are you, sir? Where are you? That we were going to build a National Museum of the Marine Corps, and we were going to do it with private money, and it was going to happen here. And it's proof that, you know, as Joe Dunford says, if you don't have a dream, you can't have a dream come true. And so we had a dream, and it came true, and here it is. And sitting in that theater today, giving the awards to people I know, like Cale Weston and Yuri Arte and Niemeyer and Hope Hodge Sect and all the other recipients, was a great honor. So as you would expect, our Marines remain busy. We're about 185,000 active and about 38,000 reserves tonight as we sit here in this beautiful hall, having a nice meal, sharing each other's company. There's about 36,000 Marines forward deployed in about 39 countries, about 23,000 west of the international date line. They're on ship. They're in foreign lands. Some of them are in not so good places. Some of them are at risk. Some of them are defending our embassies. And a lot of the rest of them are training to get ready to go. There's three types of Marines today: those that are deployed, those that have just got back, and those that are getting ready to go. But they're doing exactly what you would expect, and they're serving well. So if I went to the Pacific, Lieutenant General Dave Berger out in Hawaii and Lieutenant General Larry Nicholson in Okinawa. And we got F-35s deployed out there. They're actually on their way to Alaska for a training exercise. We've just reestablished the force in Australia, and just to give you an idea, it's 3rd Battalion, 4th Marines, our 24th Infantry Battalion we just brought back out of 29 Palms, just deployed to Australia. And for the first time, we've got MV-22 Ospreys there with them. And they flew from K-Bay to Wake, from Wake to Guam, and Guam to Australia. Self-deployed. Just saying. Just saying. And not that I was worried about it, but I was tracking that pretty close. But quite frankly, it's not that big a deal, because we've flown from Spain to Ceuta to Djibouti. We've flown from Maron to Camp Lejeune to Cherry Point to New River. We do it all the time. And it doesn't even break squelch. In fact, some of the stuff that's going on, if you sat in the ops brief and heard what was going on, and we just kind of go, we just nod our head, you know, am I supposed to harumph now? Yes, General, you're supposed to harumph. And you just kind of, it's eye-watering what we do and what these Marines are able to do. Brigadier General Roger Turner just went back into Helmand Province in Afghanistan with 300 Marines to work with the 215th Corps. Many in here have got history there and know that place. And we've lost way too many Marines there, but we're back to try to make the Afghans, give them another opportunity to get it right. The Mew sits off Yemen. Another ship of the Mew sits off Libya. There's a special purpose MAGTF in Iraq. We've got 400 Marines in Syria providing indirect fire support. We've got 2 Marine colonels at Al-Assad and Taqadum leading a combined joint coalition force training Iraqi security forces. There's MARSOC guys up around Mosul supporting the attack there. So they're doing their job as you would expect. Brigadier General Dave Furness just took over command of the JTF in Djibouti. Another special purpose MAGTF is out of Maron. They go back and forth between Sigonella to support the one amphib that's off of Libya. We got Marines in Romania. We got Marines in Latvia. We got Marines in Norway. We got Marines all over Africa. We're working with all our joint partners. We got AV-8Bs flying out of Bahrain, dropping bombs, as Sergeant Major would say, changing people's zip codes, and doing what you would expect us to do. So it's an honor and privilege to be part of all this and to see it. But we're not satisfied. I mean, this museum, besides a testament to our history, what's really in here is a testament to our ability to adapt and change and to continue to evolve and be the kind of force that the nation needs, not just for today, but for the future. And if you look at, I look at the short time, I mean, you look at, we went from M14 to M16 to M16-2, M16A4 to M4, and now we're going to M27. We went from Toto 5s and the Pig to 1908s to 777s. We went to M48s to M60s to M1A1s. We went from LVT 5s to 7s. We're going to go to ACVs. We've gone from M151 Jeeps to Humvees to JLTVs. We've gone from Prick 25s to Strick 77s to Prick 148s to God knows what's next using the technology that's available out there. We're going to fly unmanned vehicles. We are probably going to operate more unmanned vehicles. We were just out in California with General Walsh doing a big demonstration on the coast. And we had about 100 vendors out there displaying all sorts of technologies, and it was absolutely eye-watering what the potential is. And the best part about it is a lot of these science people, propeller heads, as some of my friends might call them, had a chance to talk to Marines. And for the first time, I think they actually sat with a lance corporal or corporal, and they go, "Oh, I really understand now what you guys want us to do." Okay, so you've been talking to officers and you couldn't figure it out, so I let you talk to a lance corporal, and now it's crystal clear. We've developed a concept, the Marine Operational Concept, and we're looking at our force design, Force 2025, as we move in. Not to focus on today, because we're going to get today done, but we've got to worry about what's coming. Whether it's counterterrorism, whether it's all the stuff that Secretary Kelly deals with, or it's our potential adversaries, Russia, China, Iran, North Korea, or somebody that we haven't even thought about. And while we've been busy fighting and doing great stuff, they've been busy recapitalizing and redeveloping their force, and they've got great technologies. And we're in a position now where we really need to start looking at them, because we don't want a fair fight. We don't want any American, whether it be a soldier, sailor, airman, or Marine, to go out there and have a fair fight. We want it to be an unfair fight where we come home and they don't. So this place reminds us of combat. They remind us what the cost is, as General Boomer so eloquently stated, that freedom isn't free. There's a cost to pay, and it takes men and women of virtue and character and honor and spirit and courage and commitment that are willing to go to some unnamed place in the middle of the night and do what needs to be done without being told. But that's what Marines do. And this museum reminds us of that. I wish I could bring every Marine before they get their EGA, every recruit class. I wish I could bring them in here and instead of having the drill instructor talk to them, try to explain to them, they could see it, they could feel it, and they get a sense of what this legacy is. Because all of us that still wear the cloth today, we walk on the shoulders of many of you that are in this room, and many of those that are no longer with us. But this is the place where we can see that, we can feel it, understand the heroism, the acts, the selflessness, the camaraderie, the spirit, the friendship, the brotherhood, the sisterhood, everything that's in this building. And so, again, to the Heritage Foundation and to all those that support it, thank you so very, very much. This museum is a critical part of who we are and what we're going to be tomorrow. So I had an email today from our recruiting commander, Major General Paul Kennedy, who was opining about the lack of money that he has for advertising. And we have a great advertising agency, and we'd like to run more commercials. But I want to show you something that a bunch of Lance Corporals did for me in the Pentagon that cost absolutely nothing. So I'll let you judge for yourself. But this is kind of what they think today's Marine Corps looks like. So if we could play that, that would be great. Hopefully it'll work.
I like this Marine Corps a lot. We have a Marine Corps that's very experienced, it's
Been in combat for the last 15 years. The quality of the Marine, and even to get in the door, is very high. They didn't join the Marine Corps to sit on their sea bag back at Camp Pendleton, Camp Lejeune. They want to go somewhere and do something. We have an incredibly capable Marine Corps. Can we get better? Yes. Must we get better? Yes. Will we get better? Yes. The Marine Corps doesn't give anybody anything. You earn everything you got. It's not the machine that matters, it's the Marine that matters. We equip the Marine, not the machine. We're going to continue to innovate and adapt like Marines have done throughout our history. Innovate, adapt, win, where we recognize we as Marines, we're a warfighting organization. Every Marine is a rifleman. That every Marine has to be fit, disciplined, that every Marine has to study to get better. All those basic things that we're going to work with Special Operations Command, that we're going to leverage the F-35, that we're going to continue to innovate and adapt like Marines have done throughout our history. You know, what we do is not a job. Not everybody can do this. The first call if something bad happens is going to be to Marines. And they're going to call us because every time they have called us, we got it done. We'll continue to get better, and if we get called to go somewhere and do what we have to do, we have to win. We have to win. So I have one request. Earlier the band, and I just want you to know the color guard we had, those were the shortest guys we could find. They were really the shortest ones up there. But I heard General Field in the back singing the national anthem. And I also heard him singing the Marines hymn. I don't know why we just don't all stand up and sing. So I think we ought to stand up and sing the Marines hymn. Just the first verse. I don't want to embarrass anybody. So all Marines, where are you, General Field? I know you're here, sir. All Marines, on me. From the halls of Montezuma to the shores of Tripoli, we will fight our country's battles in the air, on land and sea. First to fight for right and freedom, and to keep our honor clean. We are proud to claim the title of United States Marines. Hoorah! Thank you very much.
General Neller, thank you. You're my Commandant, you're all our Commandant, and we're really proud to serve side by side with you, each and every one of us. Thank you. And Darcy, thank you. Thank you for all that you do all day, every day for Marines and Marine families, and for keeping General Neller kind of pointed in the right direction. It makes a difference. And I do thank General Neller. You know, your time is valuable. It's extraordinarily valuable. And for you to share that precious gift with us tonight, to make this evening so special, I appreciate it, and I know everyone in this room appreciates it. My thanks to all of our awardees for joining us this evening and for helping us to continue to preserve and promulgate the history, traditions, and culture of our Corps. Keep at it. We had one returning letterman tonight, and I encourage you and look forward to seeing some of you again here next year. Our thanks to each and every one of our guests here tonight. I've mentioned sincerely to the active duty generals in particular. I've been there, and I know what it means late on a Saturday afternoon to take your shorts and t-shirt off and put that uniform on, and I'm grateful. I'm grateful for your support. I'm grateful that you're here. We thank each and every one of our guests for your continued support. We will look forward to keeping you informed of the museum staff's, led by Lynn Ezel's, progress in populating these new galleries and bringing to life this final phase of this magnificent museum, this home for all Marines. Now, I want you to really listen up. General Neller, General Boomer, Sergeant Major Green, Corporal Bush, and all of our award winners, I ask that you come up to the stage for one final group picture. I know many of you want to pay your respects to the Commandant, meet Corporal Bush, and congratulate General Boomer and all of the award recipients. But please, I would ask that you let them be so that we can take this photo and not be spending the next 15 minutes trying to track somebody down. Thank you everyone for coming. Have a safe trip home and Semper Fidelis.